So first up, we have Angelo, who has been the president of Monash Villarreal since the formal partnership with Villarreal CF was established in 2020. Angelo and his team have overseen significant growth and development in all aspects of the football here at the club, including a really momentous achievement last year with the acceptance into the YSL competition for the senior boys. So please welcome Angelo to give his president's address and learn about the competition.
I'd like to warmly welcome you to our sponsors function today. My name is Angelo Zissis and I'm the president of the club. We are honoured to have with us today Mark Bosnich, who has kindly taken the time to speak with us today and travelling down from Sydney, so thank you, Mark. A boy from Liverpool, New South Wales, who became a goalkeeper and represented the Australian Socceroos, Manchester United, Aston Villa and Chelsea. What a great career. Frank Karatis as well, from Football Victoria. Frank is the Executive Manager of Operations and Memberships and he's representing Football Victoria today. And we thank you for joining us, Frank, and giving your, or hearing from yourself and Football Victorian issues as well that are coming up. So thank you for your attendance.
Always met the standards our clubs expect of us, and it's really great to see. Men's sitting first on the table and looking for a 6th win in a row. Women's program, even in its early journey, is already creating a clear pathway to retain those girls players and keep them in the game for the future. That doesn't happen by chance. To the sponsors here in the room, your contribution to football is critical. What you invest off the pitch is clearly translating to success on the pitch, along with the club's vision. And just as importantly, to the volunteers, the people putting in countless hours, often doing multiple roles in canteen, line marking, managing teams, liaising with us at Football Victoria, this club simply wouldn't function without you. What's most impressive is what Monash has built in a relatively short time, which is a credit to Angelo and the committee here. Some clubs rely on history, but strong clubs build strong foundations, and strong foundations create strong futures.
To have a Q&A session this afternoon. Mark is one of the most recognisable football figures in Australia, a former Socceroo with 17 caps, a professional goalkeeper for Aston Villa, Manchester United and Chelsea, and with the help of Google found out over 200 Premier League games. So that is a significant achievement and a significant career at the top of football, top of world football. Stepping away from football, Mark has built a really successful career in the media. I think it stands sport. He does the commentary and punditry for the Champions League, the Premier League and the A-League in Australia here, and is one of the preeminent voices for football in Australia. So before we...
Thank you very much for that, and for the round of applause, and we've brought back some lovely memories. That was great.
Well, welcome. So going back to your junior days, when did you fall in love with football? When did you know you wanted to be a goalkeeper? And how did that pathway work out for you?
Well, I was a little bit of a late bloomer in terms of falling fully in love with football. I came from a football family. My father immigrated to this beautiful country in 1958 from what was then Yugoslavia, what is now Croatia. So obviously he had football in his blood. My mum was born here, but her parents came in between the 2 world wars. Grandfather went to cancer, cut sugar cane. I was actually saying this story outside, and late grandmother went to Broken Hill. So the influence of other sports was obviously strong here as well, but there was a defining moment, and ironically this week, it is a bit of a plug for Stan Sport as well. One of the best games of football that I've seen this century took place in Paris between Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern Munich. And it reminded me when I truly fell in love with football back in 1982, when a lot of people here weren't even born. It was a World Cup game between Brazil and Italy, which Italy won 3-2. That really turned it for me. There were several other moments which shaped where I wanted to play and so forth, but that was a moment that stuck out in my mind quite vividly. Like I said, my mum and dad, even though they weren't too sort of overbearing, they weren't particularly happy when I used to come home and say I wanted to play rugby league or whatever. So as soon as I said I wanted to play football, I could sense the tension in the room went completely out.
And so why goalkeeper?
Well, to put it plain and simple, and Chatham House rules, those who don't know that, is this all stays between the four walls. Basically, I wasn't good enough to be an outfield player. So that's what it is. I started off as a striker and went on the wing for a bit to midfield, at the back, and then goalkeeper. And also the influence of other sports as well. So like I said, I used to play a lot of rugby league at school, mainly because mum and dad didn't know I was playing it at school. I did a lot of cricket as well. I've always been a great believer that, especially at a young age, to continue doing other sports as much as you can. By all means, just like a subject at school kids, right? You might be a specialist at geography, but make sure you do enough that you know about mathematics and you know about other things in that as well. I think it helps the general all-round athlete. So to sort of put it into sort of simple terms, when I started to really do it seriously was probably at the age of 12. And when I say seriously, I was fortunate to meet an ex-Socceroo called Ron Corrie, who was at a camp, and then he used to bring me up to a local club in Marconi in Sydney to train with the first team when I was 12. And to get his tutelage, that was so important to me. But really, from a serious perspective, from age of 12.
And so, as you developed through your teenage years, what were some of the really important elements of your development in terms of the club culture, the training, the coaching? What did you find really important in those formative years in development?
I think a really important thing that's often overlooked, and this is in terms of everything in life, not just football, but in other things. I've done a lot of work with people who are involved in trying to keep the kids on the straight and narrow. And one of those things that they try to avoid with kids is joining a gang. Now, gangs have actually got the one thing that I think everybody, not just kids, but everybody wants to feel, and that's the feeling of belonging. And when you look back, I was very fortunate. We had our own community club. It was called Hayduk, after a famous Croatian team in the west of Sydney. And it was a feeling of belonging, number one. In terms of the football sense, it goes different for different age groups. Nacho Ferreira will tell you that different age groups, you have different developments. Kids are maturing at different times, and there's different requirements. But the original thing is that feeling of that part of belonging, that you belong to somewhere, that you know that there's something that's consistent, that's reliable, that you can turn up and do. And in terms of our sport, football, we know, Australia in general is one of the great, you could say, unconquered places still with football. And we've all got a job to do with that. That will take another day for me to talk about all that. And the fact that it brings people together, regardless of their nationality, their race, their creed or whatever, that's another wonderful thing. And like I said, the shared experiences, the part of feeling that you belong to something is very, very special indeed. And that's something when I look back, when I received the questions this week, I thought very deeply about how to answer, because I realised there'd be kids in the room as well. That is so important, growing up, that you feel part of something, because not everybody's fortunate to have a full family, not everybody's fortunate enough to have a loving family or something else. But I can just go a little bit fast forward. When I went at age 16 to England on my own, my football club was my surrogate family, and you felt that part, that piece of belonging. That goes, I think, for everyone at every walk of life. You need to feel as though that you belong to something. And that's up to the people that are in charge, like Nacho, to create that environment, wherever it may be, but especially for a football club, that number one, you feel that you belong to something and you truly deserve to be there.